Hey everybody, how are you? Good? Awesome. Are y'all enjoying your week so far? Is it crazy busy? Apparently everybody's asleep, so it must have been busy. So, my name's Tanner. Thank you for coming to Laravel DFW. So I'm going to just go through a couple of things really quick. First of all, though, again, thank you so much. Let me get a couple of show of hands. How many of you guys are coming from Lone Star PHP tonight? Awesome. Let's give them a hand. All right, so how many of you heard about us on Twitter? Anybody? How about you're a regular? Any regulars in the room? Awesome. And how many of you built Laravel? There's just one over there. Okay, so my name's Tanner. I'm the organizer of Laravel DFW. We have a lot of great guys that help out. One of them is Seth over there. Another one's Oz. Oz is sick tonight, so if you want to tweet at him, tell him I'm sorry if you missed it. But you can find me on Twitter. And we just try and group everybody that has Laravel experience or no Laravel experience together so we can talk and hear from great people. Tonight you're going to be hearing from one of our members, Nathan Barrett. He's a great guy. He has some pretty cool experiences to share over the last couple of years as he learned it. So I'm excited to get into that. So the first thing is the music you were hearing. I work for a company called MusicBed. And so we do music licensing for filmmakers. We'll play it again at the end. Just a quick plug because I can, So musicbed.com, check it out. We represent 650 of the best indie artists in the world. It's really awesome. Also, let's give a round of applause for Axxess, please. Thank you guys so much for hosting us. We really appreciate it. And so this is the first meetup that we've done here at Axxess. So far, it's been way awesome. I mean, thank you guys so much. The other thing is, I just want to draw your attention to our Slack channel. So it's a really good way for you to just to connect with people locally that use Laravel. And if you have questions, you can just jump on the middle of your workday. Most people are just on there just to help each other out. So just go to laraveldfw.com/Slack. There's a little form. You just fill it out, and then we'll send you an invite. You just put in your email address. Is anybody on Slack right now? Who uses Slack like day to day? Constantly. Okay, so there's like at least 15, maybe like 2,000 people in this room for those of you watching online that are on Slack. You should join because it'll be a great way just to connect with Laravel people. The other thing is you can follow us on Twitter, Laravel DFW. And then at the end of this, we'll be doing a Q&A with Taylor Otwell. For those watching online, Taylor's here with us, so we're super excited to do just a Q&A with us. So if you have any questions tonight, be thinking about them now. Nathan's going to be up next, and then during that time, if you have a question for Taylor, just tweet at us. So if you have your phone, go ahead and do that. And we'll go through those later. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Nathan Barrett, and he can take it away. Come on, give him a round of applause, please. I forgot something. I'll do it at the end.
Hello, everybody here. All right, well, thank you guys for coming out. Thanks again to Axxess for having us out here. It's not every day I get to give a speech while drinking a beer at the same time, so it's very cool. Like Tanner said, my name's Nathan Barrett. I started learning PHP 2.5 years ago, and I picked up Laravel about 2 years ago while I was running a car dealership in Dallas, Texas. Very weird. But started learning. So it's one of those things where you try to find your path in life, and we all have those experiences. But if there's anything I can underscore my talk with is the beauty and the simplicity of Laravel and why I love it. There's no reason I'd be able to up here speaking to you if I had not picked up Laravel and looked at that first before really any other framework. The code readability and everything, all the philosophy behind it is spectacular. So now I run my own software development company. I picked up a couple of big projects, and I also have a couple of software products that I sell to car dealers. Like I said, I picked it up 2 years ago, and it all centers around Laravel. So that in and of itself was kind of amazing, right? Because to me, the analogy of that is, when a long time ago, programmers they had hammers, knives, or they had hammers, screwdrivers, what have you. And now with frameworks like Laravel, all of a sudden we have cranes, we have bulldozers, we have things like that, where we can immediately erect applications very quickly. So something I'm very excited about. And thank you all for coming out. By the way, this is quite a change from what it was going to be. Originally, this was, just so you know, this was originally going to be like 8 guys on a Google Hangout, and Taylor was like, "Hey, can you like just give a presentation?" I was like, "Yeah, I can do that." And so the analogy to that would be is if like Taylor was running like a hip hop group, and we were just gonna freestyle rap on Google Hangouts, and he's like, and then he comes back later and he's like, "Oh, hey, by the way, instead of 8 of us, there's gonna be like 30 or 40 of us, and instead of being online, it's gonna be in the studio. And oh yeah, Jay-Z's gonna be there." so there's kind of, you had to ramp up some stuff. Who I am not. If you guys don't know who this is Jeffrey Way. He has been my kind of my guide, so to speak, for the last couple of years. He doesn't know who I am. He's probably creeped out if he saw this. But he runs Laracast. Really good presenter. He's a very good presenter. He does it for a living. I don't present for a living, and so you may see me stutter here and there. I Google stuff just like you do, like we all do. But if you want to keep learning, go to Laracast, get a subscription. It's totally worth it. All praise be to Jeffrey. All right, so here's what we're going to cover. I know that Angular 2 is coming out. Angular 1 is going to be around for a little while. So it's still worth it to take a look at it and see what you can do with it. I am playing with Angular 2 just like everybody else, but Angular front to end is pretty robust. You can do almost anything you want with it. So I guess the question comes down to is how do you handle that handshake between front end and back end? How do you deliver data? How do you do all that stuff? Well, the answer is that it's kind of nebulous. Everybody does it differently. And there are some definite wrong ways to go about it. And there's some definite right ways to go about it. And there's a lot of stuff in between. And we're going to cover kind of all that here. And so the example that I'm going to be showing you guys today, what I've kind of erected, is something that'll be, it'll show something that may not work for that project, but it'll show you the techniques anyway, if that makes sense. So the way I like to build, and it'll be kind of centered around this, is single-ish page apps. And with a lot of these tools that you have in Laravel, like Elixir and Blade, things like that, it allows you to put very easily a lot more functionality into one page and still keep the page loads time relatively decent, if that makes sense. So, and I'm going to go over how to do that. And then we're going to go over, basically bringing in information into Angular. All right. So without further ado, we'll get started. So what I did was I created something. It's just a film festival registration. So this is a film festival. I called it End of the World. This is a film festival for people who are obsessed with, or constantly thinking that the world is going to come to an end. If I can get out of here. I do this for a living, by the way. All right. Yeah, there's. All right. Now I redid my resolution. Okay. So 28th annual End of the World Film Festival. We're going to register our film, okay? So, like anything else, we have to have a login and registration. And there's three basic areas. There's, you go in to create your account, then you upload your films, give information about the films that you're registering, and then purchase showdown tickets, which are, for every film category, there'll be where you can watch them back to back, showdown tickets, however you want to call it. And so before we get started with all that, I am going to get back here and kind of briefly cover how I think about, or whatever I start thinking about whenever I start building something with Laravel and Angular together. And the first thing that I think of is Elixir, and where stuff is going to go, and how it's going to tie in. And so, as many of you know, a lot of stuff goes into, if you're working with Elixir, a lot of stuff goes into this assets folder, right? Elixir, a lot of it's built around looking directly at those two folders specifically, although there's some more as well. And so you have that, and it's a different mindset if you don't do it this way, if you throw stuff into the public directory, whatever you're working on, because you have to compile it, essentially. You have to run gulp, you can do gulp watch and things like that. It'll constantly compile for you. But it's still a different mindset because you kind of catch yourself making some changes, getting weirded out because those changes don't show up, and things like that. Well, you may need to rerun your gulp. And so you come down here, and there's gulp file right here. And so right here, we're starting out with Elixir. And so what this site's built on is just all your standard stuff. It's going to be Bootstrap. It's going to be Angular. It's going to be Font Awesome. I use like something to change up the Bootstrap checkboxes, things, small stuff like that. And so what I normally do is whenever a page loads, I normally like to have just my global app.css at the top. And typically that ties in whatever small stuff that page needs, because like I said, I'm not loading a bunch of pages. This is a single-ish page app. And so we have that, and I also have like a global JavaScript that I save into the assets folder that later gets put in. But so let's say we have like our page is registered. We have a register page. Well, I'm going to have my app.css at the top. Then I'm going to put Angular in the head. And the only reason I put Angular in the head, like a minified version of it, is so that I can use cloak to keep my brackets from showing up. You can still put it in the bottom, things like that, and I've heard of some tricks. But and then at the bottom, I just have one JavaScript file. One JavaScript ties everything together. And then, obviously, when you put it to production, you can minify it and things like that. And we'll go over that here in a little bit. So let's start from top to bottom. Anybody? So I'm sure almost everybody here has worked with Bootstrap in some form, all you developers. And then there's Boot Swatch. That gives you all the different themes. And I don't know if you guys have seen that or not, but Boot Swatch, bunch of great themes. Especially when you're starting out, you can, instead of going with the regular Bootstrap, you can pick one of these, and different flavors, and you can change it up. And so the way I keep my Elixir file is I kind of keep a site theme, and so I install everything with Node Package Manager. And I realize I'm jumping around a little bit here. Like I said, I'm trying to. I don't present for a living, but anything I want to install, like the Boot Swatch or anything like that, goes to the Node Package Manager. So let's say I haven't used it in here, but let's say I want to involve like Moment.js, something like very popular, something working with dates, right? We'll say in here, you just do npm install Moment, and then you save it if you want to save it to your package.json file. And what that'll do is that'll bring it into this folder called Node Modules here. And very wisely, the env file, the gitignore file that comes with Laravel has that ignored, which you should definitely have that. That'll eat up a lot of space if you don't. And so from there, we have Moment brought in, but so let's say I want to include that in my global JS. So right here, I'm including. Well, the first thing I do is I copy Angular over to the public directory because, like I said, that's the only one that's standalone. And then from there, I have to copy over Font Awesome's fonts directory because the CSS file looks at that directly. And then we have this is where I create my global JS file. But look here, I'm not putting it into the public directory just yet. So all the stuff that I know I'm going to be using site-wide, jQuery, Bootstrap, right, outside of Angular, I just save it here to assets.js, app.js, right? And that way, whenever I compile scripts down here, I can just reference that and tie that back in, keeping only one JavaScript file at the bottom. I like to keep as few calls as possible. Everybody has their own way of doing it. So here at Bootswatch, I'm pulling the Yeti theme right here, but this allows you to change it out to anything else you want, and you can change the. See how to do it there. But you can change it to like the paper theme and save it, and it'll change up the whole layout of your site, the way it looks. It's very good for like when you're first popping something up and you want to play around with it and see how it's going. You can do it like that. Animate CSS, I use that quite a bit, and then Font Awesome in Awesome Bootstrap. So anyway, this all goes into our app, this is our global app CSS, and I also reference a little global CSS in case I want to put my own stuff in there. Ticket picker CSS, we'll get into that in a little bit. That involves a directive. And so here's where we get to the register page. We're going to be, everything you look at on the website is going to be entirely on the register page. So here's what I do, is I reference, the first thing I bring in is my global app.js, right? And that's the one that I stored at resources as like app.js right here. That's that global one that I stored. So I'm going to grab that first. Then I'm going to grab this, which is ZXC VBN. If you guys are big on forcing users to have strong passwords, I highly recommend this this JavaScript library. It's made by the folks over at Dropbox. I don't know all the math behind it, but you can read it. It's really good. And then I get ticket picker directive, which we're going to get back to here in a little bit, and then some services, some Angular services, which we'll talk about, and then we got the register controller and the register app. And so I'll go over what all those mean here in just a second. But again, this just means that we're converting everything into one JavaScript file for the register page. And then from there, I'm gonna this partial has to do with, again, the directive that we'll go over here in a second. And then versioning the files. Versioning files is always good, mainly for cache busting purposes. So whenever you change something on your JavaScript files, you don't have to ask your users to do a hard refresh or things like that. It will automatically just reload the new JavaScript. It's kind of really nice. And so if you guys kind of understand that, and by the way, if you have a question, this is kind of open, just throw it out there. I'll definitely be happy to answer. Why did you do this, or what are you thinking, kind of deal. So let's pull up some of what we're working with here. So we got, this is kind of the way I like to structure it. So I got JavaScript for my pages, then I got my directives and services. Here's kind of the way I like to do it. And here's my controller. So a controller is what, just like a Laravel controller, it runs the DOM end of what's going on the front end. And there's different ways of going about the controller. A lot of people like to keep their controllers small and tiny, like me. Just, there's a whole lot of code that you're either doing something wrong or you haven't thought it out correctly. But I have done one of the sections, the film section, where you upload the film. I did that all inside the controller so you can see how much room that takes up when you don't use services or directives or things like that. So we'll go over that. And then at the very end, this is where you tie it all together. And this is the kind of last one that Elixir ties in, is this register app where you start bringing in all your values, directives, services, and controllers. So let's pull up some of the views, and then we got final register. There we go. Here's the register page. Let me move this down. So I'm extending. So you guys all have your own way of doing your layouts. This is kind of pretty much a standard layout where at the very top, you have your meta tags and a place to put in the meta tags. And I'm assuming you guys know a lot about Blade. The survey we did found out a lot of people didn't know that. Place to put in your title. Like I said, the global app CSS right here, but any other CSS you may want to tie in for any of the pages you're doing. Angular, and then header scripts if you need to throw those in, content and footer scripts. I rarely ever go beyond that for just my layout page. Sometimes I do, but that's basically the main structure of how I like to keep things. In fact, I almost need to keep a copy of this just so I can copy and paste it because I write the same thing every time. And so we go back to register, and we're extending that layout, and we're filling into the content. And I usually start out, I don't start out, just because I had to show different formats, I don't normally start out just doing app and control like that in different section tabs. But I did it this way because we're going to be showing a couple of different ways to include data. So we got the includes right here. So let's go back and forth so you can see the actual visual part of it, and we can tie it in. So here's create an account. Here's the three sections. Create an account, upload your film, purchase tickets, right? And here are those three steps right here. And you have the account, film, tickets, and I have them here under steps. And so the one we're looking at right now is account. Now this is a lot to look at, I realize, but I wanted to point out a couple of things where how powerful Angular is on validating your data. And I know some people they don't like doing front-end validation, but to me, what it comes down to is that as a system admin, there is data that you definitely do not want. There's data that you do want, but a lot of times you're concerned about you definitely don't want this kind of data coming in. And then there's preferable data. And there's a lot of gray area between there. But Angular is very, very good at making sure you're getting exactly what you want. And then I usually have the Laravel validation, just making sure that I definitely not getting what I don't want. That makes sense. It's kind of my mentality. And if somebody ends up getting past the Angular validation and tripping the Laravel validation, then I've done something wrong and need to relook at what I've been doing. So you have your different inputs, and I'm going to go through these one by one. But you have, you're filling in your name, and you have these directives here where you can disable inputs on the fly. You can animate it when it is invalid, things like that, using the animate CSS. And I realize I'm going really fast here, but it's just there's a lot of things that go along with this. And again, ask any questions, or if you have any questions about what's going on. And so another thing that I did here, right, this is what we're looking for, is let me wrap these up so you can kind of see the size of the different areas that we're working on. So in the create account section, you get about 90 lines of code, right? So where I'm working on password states and things like that. So let's go through the process here. What I did was, so you put in your name, and then also on my seeder, real quick, I'm also checking on the fly. I like to do this. I put in one email that I didn't know about, so that way I can test. As people put in their emails, I like to be able to test whether or not that exists on the fly, instead of having to go through the whole process and things like that. Again, it depends on how you like to do things. All right, and then I had that password tester thing I was telling you about. Very good library. All right, so here's where I used, and I'm gonna speed up here a little bit just so I don't run out of time at the end. Here's where, let's look at the routes file real quick. So when I submitted that, we went through register right there. Went through the register function. What does that register look like? All right. Well, here's the register function right here, and all we're doing right here is creating the user, creating a confirmation code, confirmation expired, firing an event, which I'll show you how to do that real quick, super simple to do, and then sending a response once that's done. Typically, I would queue this, and I think I have, but it's still synced up. But typically, when you do email events like that, yeah, you can keep going. All right, so let me show you. So in order to create an event, and I'll show you here real quick. Go to. Oh, I just lost it. Nope. Nope. Go to. I just blanked. It's not the listeners, because the thing that where it auto generates for you, it's somebody. Does anybody remember off the top of their head? Where is that? Service provider, right? Where's that under? Providers. Yeah. Yeah, this is where I put it. Again, like I said. So you write down, here's your event. Again, I haven't even created these files yet. You type this in, and you say, and then you use the artisan event generate command. What that'll do is that'll look at what you have in here and generate the files if they do not exist. So it's a real handy tool. So what does that do? Okay, well, that fires the account registered event, and I'm just bringing in the user here, and then once we have the user attached to the event, then I can bring in the event, then the listener gets fired, and from there I can send out an email, and I'm having it go through Amazon SES, things like that. All right, so now back to the email. So let's see if it showed up. Yep, there it is. All right. So, this I normally don't do it like this, but I'm doing it like this again to show you like a different way, a couple of cool things about Angular. So I'm going to copy this code, but here's another thing I'm going to show you real quick about Angular. That I'm going to copy that white space right next to it. So I'm copying the code plus a white space. That's normally a big deal because whenever you're bringing input in from a user, sometimes the white space take it in. Angular, unless you explicitly tell it to, the majority of the time, it will trim all inputs for you, which is huge for me. So we'll paste that in, and then once I do that, it goes through to the check confirmation, and then from the check confirmation, it logs me in manually, and it sends back a response, yes, the user has been logged in. And also, the other important thing to do is it clears out I made sure and cleared out my confirmation code and confirmation expiry date. It's a big deal. If you don't clean up behind yourself, you'll just end up with a mess, like anything else. All right, so next we're going to go and upload your film. And so I added a bunch of rules here. You can it's $50, I believe, for every film that you want to register. You can register up to 4 films. And here's another way that I use. This is a very powerful way of using the configuration files in Laravel to kind of run a lot of your rules. And again, there's different ways you can go about this. This is just how I happen to do it. So I created a film.php, and this is where all the costs and everything for right now, registration costs, free categories, max categories per film, extra categories per cost. So you get 1 free category that you can enter your film into. You can enter up every film up to 3 categories. For every extra category, it'll be $15. 4 maximum films per person. Then max films per category, 75. So that's the max amount of films that can register for category. And so and here's the different kind of categories for all the films that the very weird people. So starting out with a $50, and again, we can bring in those values. So we need to bring in those values in Angular. How do you do that? Well, we brought in all that during the auth phase. We did it all with the service, and I'll show you that real quick. Oops, we won't be in here. All right. So in services, I had an auth service, and these are very handy for when you want to do something that you're going to repeat. So I can take this auth service and I can bring it into any other page where I want to log out, sign in, things like that. I don't have to constantly rewrite. Whereas in the film section, I did it all in the controller, and I want to show you how much more room that takes up when you don't start putting stuff into services and directives. So let's one second. Oops. All right, so that's the auth section, about 90 lines of code with film registration. Look at all that. I feel like there's a lot more functions there. You know, just kind of dirties up your controller in my mind. It's just a way of doing it. Just, you know, you have to kind of go up and down. Make sure you document everything. I didn't document all the functions here and stuff. I was blowing through, but this kind of shows you everything that what we're doing here. So let's put in film name here. Name is, and that'll be on. I don't know. I guess it doesn't matter, but say Vimeo. Like it's hosted on Vimeo. And then running minutes. I have a validation, extra validation here. So the max running minutes is 200 minutes. So if we have 250 minutes, the max, we have that come up, and I'll show you how that works. All right, so extra word count. All right, so under film minutes, I see here I have the max at 200. Well, how does it know when the max is at 200? Well, you can access the actual form that you're in, and the values within that form, and Angular will tell you whether it's an error or whether that value is invalid, things like that. Makes it very easy to do a lot of this stuff inside the DOM on the fly, freeing your controller up for a lot of space, allowing you to do putting more intelligence into the view, so to speak. It can also do some other interesting stuff, like if you wanted to make sure that none of the names have numbers in them. You do stuff like, you put in a regex pattern. Let's see if I can remember how to do this. Something like this. And then underneath, so I put the pattern in there, and I say, and I put in the help block text, which is useful with Bootstrap, and then say only show it when all my forms inside of all my forms inside of a form object on the scope. It makes it a little bit easier for me to access those. So forms.film. Let me say, since we're inside of a repeat here, and just all I'm doing is basically accessing this. That's all I'm doing. And then index pair pattern. Say only film names cannot have numbers. And so, oops. So from there, let's see if that works. Nope. Okay. Well, obviously I missed the regex pattern somewhere, but that. Do what? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's try that. Yeah, I think my regex was off there. Let's try that.
Regex is great, actually.
Oh, that's it.
Give a round of applause.
Yeah. 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 So like that. And again, you do it to make sure it does all that stuff. So I'm going to bypass something just for the sake of time, real quick. I am going to disable the stuff here, just so I can go on to the other one. So we've got a place where you can upload your film. You could add another film, put those films into these categories with a maximum of up to 3. And it'll update your tallies up here. But that's kind of how it works. And again, all this code is going to be, I think, Tanner, we're going to put this up on it's public now, so we'll put this up on Laravel DFW. You guys can glance at it and see kind of how we went about it. So let's go over to purchase showdown tickets. So this is run off of a directive. So what is a directive? A directive is a way of basically injecting code into elements and making a way to compartmentalize your data, making your life a lot easier. So let's show what. So you see how big this film section was, right? Let's take a look at the tickets section. Yeah. That's how big the ticket section is, and this is how much easier your life is when you start using directives, services, things like that. So we have a ticket picker right here. That's a directive that runs it. We can find that here on. I have it pulled in right here, and let's take a look at that directive. And so, pretty simple. It's basically a function that returns an object, and we're saying you can do element only. Here's the stuff I'm pulling in on the tag. So I want the categories from the parent scope. I want the categories and max film per categories. I need those. And so we're bringing that into, and from there I just start generating all the rows and seats. And so there we can see lots of silence and staring category only has 1 seat, so we should probably grab that one. And then that one's sold out. Nobody's going to pancakes, so we'll grab a couple of those. Sold out. One of those. So things like that. So you could use, so you can see how you were using Angular and Laravel back and forth to deliver data. Let me show you on the register.js, because that's the big part, where the handshake goes down. Probably would have showed from the beginning. Footer scripts here. So here's one way of bringing in data. You do it on page load. There's ups and downs to it. There's sometimes where this works. But you have to ask yourself, what's the cost of getting this? What's the, how much page load time are you costing yourself? But that's one way of doing it. Also, when you're bringing in arrays, objects, things like that, make sure you're doing JSON custom code, things like that. Otherwise, it'll fail. And then, like I said, the other way of bringing in data is with the service, like with the auth service, and then the ticket picker directive. Now, I realize here that I blew through a ton of stuff pretty quick. And if you want to, I can go over any small little part that you want. But this is just to give you an overall broad sense of this is how I structure Angular applications in Laravel. This is how I tie it all again to where you can have tons of functionality on one page with relatively decent load times. And that's why I like the term single-ish page apps. That's kind of what I run. Does anybody else have any questions? No? Realize there's a lot of information. If you have a question later on, feel free to come up and ask me. It's not a problem. But again, thank you guys for coming out. And without further ado, I think Tanner, you're coming back up.
does anybody have questions for Nathan? How many of you guys have used Angular before? Okay, quite a few. And how many have used Laravel before? Wow, like everybody. That's pretty awesome. I mean, it is the Laravel Meetup, but that's still pretty cool. Well, cool. Thank you, Nathan. Feel free to, you already said it, but meet up with him or any of us if you have questions about anything. So that being said, hey, I figured out where the feedback comes from. That speaker's right there. Okay, so we're going to run through a couple of things, and then we'll have a conversation with Taylor in just a second. If you have questions, again, tweet at us at Laravel DFW. Let me start this back up. So where did my notebook go? Can one of you guys bring it to me? I had written down like 3 things. So this group, Artisans Collaborative, has a giveaway for us tonight. So if you're interested in getting it, if you can go on Twitter and follow us at Laravel DFW, pretty easy to remember, but just in case you forgot, there you go. Go follow us and then just mention us, whatever it is. If you want to ask Taylor a question, that'll do. And then we'll pick somebody at the end of the night. It has a T-shirt in it, and what else? Let's see. What else does it have in it? One? Is it like it's a PHP elephant? Oh man. So this is like hot stuff right here. So you'll want this for sure. Let's see. I'm not going to be able to flip through that quick enough. Okay, so thank you though for bringing it. I think that's pretty much it. We can probably bring up Taylor now. I know I'm forgetting something. I wanted to give away this thing. I should be more prepared. Does somebody want to sing a song while I look through my notebook? Jeopardy. The Jeopardy theme is also applicable here. Okay, cool. And that's it for today. So Taylor, would you mind joining me up here? Thank you so much. Everybody give Taylor a hand. So I'm going to give you this mic, if that's okay. You're very tall, so you're closer to the speaker. So you'll probably have to stand over here to not be blasted in the ear. So again, if you guys have questions here, you can just raise your hand. But also tweet it just for the sake of tweeting it, because I'm telling everybody that's online. If you're watching online, tweet at Laravel DFW, and then we'll get to your questions. I know that we already have a couple. Why don't we take one from here, because that'll give me time to look up one on Twitter. Does anybody have one?
Yeah, real quick, Taylor, we make sure to repeat the question in our audience.
Okay.
Yeah,
will do.
All right, Doug?
5.1, you did LTS.
Yeah.
And I understand from a business standpoint why you want to do that. Were there any negatives for you in doing that? What might it have changed in how you are developing Laravel, now having to go ahead and handle the LTS?
It hasn't been too bad on me so far. My main concern with the LTS is that since it's 2 years apart, it is 2 years of new features, slight changes. You know, every minor version, like 5.1 to 5.2, we try to put an estimated upgrade time on the documentation. So I think it was 1 hour maybe from 5.1 to 5.2. But once you have 3 or 4 of those, you're at 5 or 6 hours of upgrade time. So that's the only downside, I guess, is that you're going to have a couple of years worth of change logs to go through. It hasn't been too hard on my end, though, in terms of usually we put bug fixes in 5.1 and they merge pretty clean into 5.2 because the changes between the two are not so drastic to make it a pain. So I don't totally regret it at this point. We'll see a few years down the line. Hopefully I don't.
Cool, so let's take one from Twitter. I'm going to speak this direction because the mic's over here. So this one's from Stuart Yamartino, at StuYam on Twitter. Now that you've been working full-time on Laravel for over a year, how has it changed the way that you actually work on Laravel?
Okay, do I need to repeat that one?
Okay.
So, gosh, I just spent so much more time on it, before I started full-time, I would work, 8 to 5 at Userscape, which is where I worked. We built help desk software. And then I would be with my wife and kids until 9:30 or 10, and then work from 10 to 1. And I would do that 3 or 4 nights a week. And I had a lot more energy back then. It didn't seem too bad. But now, staying up that late kills me. So Working 8 to 5 on it is definitely just a lot better in terms of like lifestyle. I can close so many more pull requests, so many more issues. I think organization-wide, we keep the pull request count like under 20, which if you use GitHub and look at like popular projects, usually it's going to be like 500 or 600. So to have it under 20 for the whole organization is really nice, and I couldn't do that if I wasn't working full-time on it. It's just not enough time, and a lot of people help, go through the issues and pull requests, but just a lot easier, I can work sane hours, get off at 5 and not really have to come back to it at 9.
Well, thanks, Stuart, for asking that. Let's take another one from here. Anybody? Okay, in the back. What's your name?
Jacob.
Jacob.
Please use hashtag smartwatch.
Okay, so the question, well, what's the latest news on hashtag SparkWatch? So y'all are probably going to boo me when you hear this, but I had intended to like bring my laptop and like if we had time, I would hook it up and show it to you. But like halfway between Little Rock and Dallas, I realized that I left all my shirts at home besides the one that I was wearing. So like when I got to Dallas, I had to go to I went to my hotel and went to a store to get shirts. And I thought I would have enough time to go back and get my laptop, but with the traffic, I just didn't have time. I had to come straight here. So, but other than that, I came down here basically to work on it like hardcore, late into the night every day, without really a lot of distractions. So I'm hoping this is the final push this weekend, and then next week I want to record videos for Jeffrey on Laracast. Like I want to do like 7 or 8 videos. Just like a tour of all the features and all that. Make sure the documentation's good. I have the website done, the site where you can log in, register, all that's done. So, I mean, it's pretty in a pretty good state. So by April 19th, hopefully you should be able to ship it out.
So everybody, let's give him a clap for hashtag clean shirts. All right. So next from Twitter, this one comes from David Hemphill, who's here. Raise your hand, David. What is the most embarrassing bug you've written on Forge or Envoyer?
Thankfully, it hasn't been too bad. With those two products, the bug could be really bad.
Does everybody know what Forge and Envoyer is? Oh, dude, sell it hard. Here's your chance.
So, Forge provisions servers for you. I originally envisioned it as a poor man's Heroku, because it's only $10 a month, and you can provision, I think, unlimited servers, even on the $10 a month plan. But it just saves you a lot of time building servers. It installs Nginx, PHP 7, Redis, Memcache, MySQL, Postgres, whatever you want. And then Envoyer does zero downtime deployments for PHP. Any PHP project, so it's not like a Laravel specific thing. People use it for all kinds of stuff. And it does kind of the whole Capistrano deploy flow where it symlinks your deployments without any downtime. But anyway, I really can't think of anything super embarrassing with either of those, thankfully. Because anytime you're dealing with other people's servers, it's sort of scary. So thankfully, I've been pretty good there. Nothing too bad.
Is that, I don't know if this is a sensitive question, what % of code testing you have coverage on for those products?
The sensitive parts are all tested. Like on Envoy, that whole deployment pipeline is all tested, which is both of those products are hard to test because unless I spin up a server and I have to SSH to it and run a bunch of checks, I don't really know that it's happening. So the tests are pretty gnarly sometimes to make sure everything's working. But all the critical stuff is tested, and I feel fairly confident about.
So I don't know if we answered David's question. So is there a Laravel one then that is funny? A Laravel bug?
Oh yeah, probably over the years. It's not coming to me now, though. I'm sure I'll think of one after.
We can take another one. Yeah, what's your name? Yeah, cool.
So, first of all, that's all. And I realized so I am a big user of your services, but is there a reason why they
Yeah, so the question is why are Forge and Envoy separate? And it is on purpose because I thought there might be a group of people that wanted to use zero downtime deployments, but for whatever reason they have their own in-house sysadmins or their own server people, and they don't really need Forge and all that server provisioning. They just want the zero downtime deployments. And so if I put them together, right, it's going to be an upsell anyway. So it's going to be $30 a month. So when you split them at both 10, it sort of works out the same, other than I understand it could be a little inconvenient because your server info is not transferring between them. But it's just so that if people need just one of those for whatever reason, and there is people that email me all the time with that case, that you don't have to buy what you don't need, basically.
Yeah, if you guys haven't checked out Envoyer or Forge, definitely check them out. Is it just forge.laravel and envoyer.laravel?
Yeah, forge.laravel.com, envoyer.io.
Okay, so definitely helpful. We actually use both, I think.
Yeah.
We're about to like push a huge deployment out of Envoyer like tomorrow, so we're gonna be like fully on there. It's gonna be fun.
I deploy Envoyer with Envoyer, which is pretty cool because it kind of like dogfits the whole process.
All right, so let's take one from Twitter. So here's another one from Studiem. Are there any new PHP 7 features that you think will be useful for the future of Laravel?
What was on PHP 7? Of course, the speed is nice. The anonymous class feature is pretty cool, but I can't think of anything offhand we would use it for. What else was in PHP 7? Oh, the type hints. Yeah, I don't know when we'll go to like exclusively PHP 7, whether that will be in November or whether it will be next May. So either 5.3 or 5.4. It just kind of depends what people say on Twitter. Yeah, I don't know if we'll jump like straight to a bunch of scalar type hits off the bat, but the speed boost was my favorite feature, obviously, because PHP being twice as fast is less server costs, stuff like that.
All right, another one from in here. Anybody? Miguel?
This is where it said that Spark was going to cost something, right?
Yeah, Spark. Yeah, so the question was Spark cost money, and has it been set? And yeah, it does cost $99, and that's per launch project. So you pay $99, you get the code. You can play with like 10 ideas that you have for some business, and it's, when you launch one, that's your one license. If you never launch any of the others, of course you don't need a license for those. And then you can play with 20 more ideas without buying any more licenses. It's only really what you launch into production that's actually making you money, since the whole point of Spark is to make you money. So whatever is making you money, you have to buy a license for.
All right, so another one from Twitter, which actually, Juan, you're here. This is from Wunsch on Twitter. What kinds of fixes fall under the 5.1 LTS umbrella? Just security fixes, bug fixes, MySQL 5.7 compatibility fixes?
All of that. All of that stuff falls under 5.1. Like we put just generic bug fixes into 5.1 all the time. Thankfully, cross fingers, we don't have a lot of bad security problems, so we haven't had to do that yet. But all the little bug fixes, there's always just little stuff, but all that goes into 5.1 and then gets merged forward into 5.2. And anything new or significant, if it's not breaking, goes straight into 5.2, so you can basically start using it immediately. Otherwise, it would go into 5.3 if it's fairly significant amount of code and/or minorly breaking.
All right, another one from here live. Nathan, you got one, surely.
No, I can think of.
Anybody else? I'll go look on Twitter while you guys think.
There's one out there.
Hey, do you have a change log of courtesy?
The question was, do we have a change log? And I wish we did. We don't have like a formal line-by-line change log. We just have the release notes, which covers, I guess, the highlights, so to speak, but not every little improvement is listed there. I would really like to improve that. We were actually just talking about that on Twitter yesterday, of what's the best way to keep that up to date, because obviously I guess the best way is just to do it like when the changes happen, but when people send pull requests, have them send a changelog upgrade, or would we do it afterwards, or whatever. We need to figure out a good flow for that, because it's sort of lame that we don't, like at this point, with how many people are using it. So hopefully you can fix that soon.
I wonder what the best way, what system would you get to pull all, because it's like
I've seen
coming from
automated.
everywhere.
I've seen some automated services that try to do it like off your GitHub commits and pull requests. I haven't tried them, and I don't know how well they work. It seems like that would be pretty tricky, but it's probably just going to take some elbow grease to do it.
Sure. I have a question.
Okay.
There's been a lot of talk about Smart in the future, and everybody's excited about that. But outside of Smart,
coming up in just base Laravel, what's probably more exciting features that are coming down the pipe?
For Laravel?
For Laravel 5.3, exciting features. I want to improve some of the API stuff, which I wrote a lot of API stuff for Spark. But some of the API authentication layer in 5.2 was sort of just like a foundation for getting started. Just sort of introduced the concept of having multiple auth drivers in the same app, like one for your API, one for your front-end web. So that was just laying the groundwork for making that possible. And then kind of opening the door so that later we can come in and introduce more sophisticated auth out of the box, possibly, or at least let package people do it more easily. So I think I'd like to improve that a little bit more. One thing I noticed in Spark that I thought was kind of lame in Laravel was like formatting some of my responses for JSON. A lot of people use like Fractal or something like that, but I think that could be improved, like out of the box, some of that JSON formatting stuff. So both of those are kind of API related. But those are the two of the things I've been thinking about. And like a lot of the like super opinionated things that I really like, I just put into Spark. So like things I could never get away with in Laravel, like two-factor authentication out of the box. I can't really like bake that into Laravel that easily without being super opinionated. But in Spark, I sort of have more freedom to make like opinionated decisions. So a lot of cool features went into Spark.
All right, another question from Twitter. This one's from David Limpo again, who's in the room too. He's in two places at once. Spark early access for the meetup, please, Kate. Thanks.
I wish I could. Like I wouldn't want to give you something that's not like totally finished, but I'll send Tanner a coupon code or something like 50%.
For me only?
Not for the whole group.
I guess I can still use it. Another one here. Anybody? Doug?
There's a lot that's on Vue.js. We had a thing tonight on Angular. I work with React and Angular. I'm looking for an opinion. I understand it's,
So
how do you feel about the different front-end possibilities? And of course, Blade is.
Yeah. The question was my opinion on JavaScript and front-end stuff. And so I'm a total JavaScript noob, and I sort of use whatever seems easiest. And that might not necessarily be the best, but I've used Angular. I like Angular. I thought that was cool. Lately, I've been on Vue just because the documentation was really good. For someone like me that's not good at JavaScript, it was very approachable for me to get into. And I tried to do React first, and it just overwhelmed me. But now, after doing Vue and seeing their concept of components, React sort of clicks like, oh, that's what React was kind of going for. And I see it in a different light now after having done Vue, which I think is kind of, it's very inspired by Angular, I feel like. But I don't do really any pure Blade apps anymore with like the old school form postbacks and all that. I don't really do that anymore. I just find the Vue and stuff like that easier really to do the forms and HTTP and all that. So right now Vue is my favorite, but I'm not the person to ask for like best JavaScript opinions. That's just me as a JavaScript noob.
So would you say, Nathan, what was the word you used? Single pages?
Singlish page apps?
Singlish page. So, because I know like at one point we were using Forge, or maybe when you demoed Forge, the workers were down, so it wasn't hitting the server, so that one piece wasn't working. So you just kind of put specific markers on the page.
Yeah, in Forge and on Forge I have one. In Angular terms, it would be one controller per page, but it's not a single page app. And then in Vue, it's one. The whole page is one component, and then within that, there's usually several components, kind of like React would be, I think.
So do you have Blade templates and then views in it, or you're using Vue?
Yeah, I still have Blade templates, but I don't use a lot of the Blade rendering. They're more just, I return like that main page from Blade, and then everything else is sort of JavaScript. All
right, let's take another from here. We'll probably go, I don't know, another 5 minutes if that's okay with you. So Stuart asks, do you have an estimate of how many developers use Laravel these days? Let's do that first.
Yeah, I wish I knew that. I don't really have a good estimate.
How many stars does it have right now?
I think a little over 20,000, which is pretty good for PHP. And then, like, the only metrics I really have are like GitHub, Twitter is at like 50,000. followers. I have the website analytics is I haven't checked it in many months, but last time I looked, it was like 60,000 hits a day, which is, I mean, it's pretty solid. I wish I had a good idea of how many companies, how many people were using it. I don't really find out that much unless people just email me, which doesn't happen very often actually, to tell me what they're doing with it, but I rarely get those emails. So.
Does Composer give you analytics?
It gives me pure downloads, but I might run Composer install 20 times a day, so I don't know how accurate that's really going to be. But
so he asks, are you trying to grow that number? I feel like the answer would be yes. If so, how are you trying to grow that number?
So with Laravel, a lot of what I do is sort of build this cohesive ecosystem where you have the framework, you have Homestead, you have Elixir, Forge, Envoy, and eventually Spark. And it sort of tries to be all complementary to give you this cohesive experience, because a lot of people just really enjoy that. I mean, some people like to sort of roll their own, but a lot of people are just want something on a silver platter, and that really appeals to them. And I think that's why JavaScript frameworks like Vue started to do so well. But another big thing that helps with the growth is just like Laracast, blogs, meetups. I try to encourage all that because it's sort of a snowball effect. Like if one person blogs and then one person learns about Laravel and they go on to write a blog, it sort of fans out that way and scales.
Another one from here. Anybody? Okay, in the back. What's your name?
Miko.
Miko. Cool.
Hey.
So given that PHP backwards is supposed to be supported through meetings,
Oh,
do you
yeah.
think that you're going to keep backwards compatibility in Axxess, or are you just going to cut
I don't know. I forgot that they had voted on that.
Yeah.
That was like kind of controversial or whatever.
Do you want to repeat the question?
Yeah, so 5.6, I'd forgotten, but they actually extended, I think, the support lifecycle for that version. And I think it was kind of a controversial vote, actually, because some people didn't really want to maintain it that long on the PHP team. So what does that mean for Laravel in terms of when will we cut support? And typically in the past we have cut support when the PHP version lost support, but since that's going to be so long, like I can't see us waiting until 2019 really. So I think it will either be PHP 7 maybe next summer or something like that. Like there hasn't been like a killer feature, to make you force people onto PHP 7. So I don't know. I'll have to kind of gauge reaction, like what people think, because a lot of times I just tweet like, hey, what do y'all think about moving to PHP 7? And if it's like really negative, then I'll hold off for another 6 months. But if people are positive, I'll just pull the trigger and do it. So it won't be 2019, I don't think.
All right. Anybody else? Doug?
You basically made a lot of our lives a hell of a lot easier. What? Okay. Yeah, it's just true. What can we do to make your life easier? It's involved in helping out with the source aspect, or documentation, or blogging more, or buying all your stuff I've already done. So anytime you have money, just throw the money at it.
The two things that come to mind are kind of sharing what you're doing with it. Either that could be a blog or a simple little tutorial. Jumping on GitHub issues, even if you don't try to contribute code, but if you can like look at an issue and say like, yes, I can recreate this issue, and it's not just an isolated thing, that helps too, because a lot of times it's time consuming because we don't know, is this just a bug in this person's app or is this a bug with the framework? And without actually trying to recreate it or write a test for it, it's a little hard for us to know. So that saves a lot of time because we can immediately know what's valid and what's just someone has a typo somewhere or something like that. But definitely, I mean, I would say even more than that, the sharing whatever you want on a blog or whatever about Laravel, because that just helps grow the whole thing and makes it all better for everybody, really.
So we have another one from David. Is Spark using a private Git repository? I just sent you a question. Did you mean, like, to clarify, did you mean like after you purchase this, you get
Like, if you purchase it, you get
It doesn't really work like that. It doesn't work like, I don't know if you've used Cardalist.
Yeah.
I think they add you to a private repo. It doesn't work like that. There's actually, you sign up and you download the installer, which is a command line tool just like Laravel new blog. So you download the installer and then you run like Spark register and your you get a token when you sign up, and that saves it into some config file or whatever. And then when you do Spark new app or whatever, that pings the API, makes sure your token's valid, and then downloads Spark into your existing project. So the flow would be like Laravel new app. No, it's not. It's Spark new app, which installs, that runs Laravel new, then pings Spark, says, okay, this person's bought Spark, installs Spark into that new project. And then there's also a Spark update command. So within that project, you can do Spark update. It sees if you're on the latest version and stuff like that. It's a little bit, it uses the newish. Composer has an option to install repos from a local path. So it updates your Composer config to point to the Spark installation directory, which basically treats it just as any other Composer dependency, which is nice because it merges all your requirements and autoloaders and all that. That's sort of like an unsung cool feature of Composer. I feel like that doesn't get mentioned a lot, but the path repository option is cool. But yeah, that's pretty much it. The Spark update command will then like scan your views that you've exported, because probably you're going to customize at least a few of the views, like maybe the registration form or the nav bar for sure. You're going to add your own links to. And if you haven't updated the view, it will go ahead and just update it for you because you haven't touched it, and we can override it. If you have updated it, it will just kind of notify you like, hey, we didn't update this view because it looks like you've modified it, so you might want to check on like the Spark release notes and see whatever bug fix it was. Hopefully there's not a lot of front-end bug fixes like that. I kind of doubt there will be because it's pretty straightforward, but that's sort of the whole flow. You don't get added to a repo or anything. You do get access to, like, there will be a Spark Slack that you'll get access to when you buy Spark. Of course, you'll have all the Spark documentation, all that.
This one too? Okay, cool. Any other questions here? Way in the back? Who has heard of Spark? I just want to give you like a time to like sell some stuff here. So okay, so half the people here. Do you want to do a quick like description of it?
Sure. So the goal behind Spark is, when I first started writing Laravel, I had a lot of side business ideas that I wanted to do, and so I was coming from .NET, and I built Laravel as a way to do those faster because hosting .NET was sort of cumbersome at the time or whatever. And so I started bringing some of my .NET ideas into PHP, and that's sort of how Laravel was born, long story short. And then I got so like wrapped up in Laravel, it took me a while to come back onto those ideas because I got so busy with the framework. But Spark is sort of like the next step in making it easier for you to launch whatever idea you have for your next business. So what it is sort of scaffolding to, it stubs out all the subscription billing code, of course, all the authentication, password reset, subscription billing, invoices, and then you can enable two-factor authentication. You can have your customers generate API tokens, it handles API authentication. What else? Oh, it has like a backend for like searching for users that have signed up, impersonating them to try to track down bugs, see how much revenue your app is bringing in, make announcements to your users. Sort of like a whole toolkit for launching your own, basically your own SaaS or whatever. Everything I would want out of the box if I was going to start like Forge or Envoy or New today, this is what I would want to have out of the box. And that's sort of how I modeled it, like all the crap that I hated writing for Forge and Envoy that was just annoying. You know, it's not stuff that's like super hard, but it's just like tedious. It just saves you all that. It saves you probably a couple weeks worth of work at least. And then it supports Stripe or Braintree for the subscription billing, supports coupons, invitations, teams, team billing. So like each team can be on its own plan, kind of like GitHub organizations. Yeah.
Is the website up yet where they can check it out?
No, the website's not up yet. I just got the final version of my email today on my drive down, so probably it'll be up next week, I think, where you can start browsing maybe the documentation or something.
And there'll be some Laracast as well coming out.
Yeah,
in the next
I want to do like
months.
7 or 8 Laracast next week, so that will kind of give you an overview of it.
Okay, so I think it wraps up Twitter. Does anybody have a closing question for tonight?
Arkansas, you still live there?
Yeah.
Do you plan on relocating at any point?
No, my family would go crazy. My family would kill me. I grew up in Hot Springs, Arkansas, which is where Bill Clinton grew up. That's what we're famous for. But yeah, I've lived there my whole life. My whole family has lived in Hot Springs for like 200 years, and we're like, my family's like very, some families are like super like attached, and some families like they move all over the place, and everyone's cool with that. But my family's not like that. Like everyone's within like a 30-mile radius, and they would go wild if I moved. Especially now that I have 2 small kids, like they would go even crazier. So yeah, I'm Arkansas for life, I guess.
Actually, Arkansas for life.
What?
Cool. Well, then, if nobody else has any questions, then do you have any closing
Just
comments?
thanks so much for Axxess. This is a really nice meetup. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for supporting Laravel. I love you guys. Thanks.
Yeah, for sure. Everybody give Taylor a hand. So this is Dave. Dave is an exceptional host, and he invited us here today. We need to move over, Seth. Oh, Dave. Come to the spotlight, Dave. Send the link on. So, Dave, I think you have a couple things to say, so thank you again for letting us out here.
I just wanted to say we're excited to have you guys here, and it's really good honor to actually be able to do this. Oh, sorry. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. Is it better?
Yes.
Okay. It's an honor to have you guys here. We're actually very excited to actually have you guys here as well. We moved to this space. This is our new space for us. And then we are, if you guys want to actually have a tour of the space, anybody with a red t-shirt will give you a space of the whole tour of the whole space as well. I wanted to say thank you for actually letting us host. You guys are at that point. And also, we do have some applications over there on the table. Just a little pitch. If you're interested, if you know anybody that's interested, we're looking for talent out there. And we use Laravel in-house for almost all of the project. We also use like Lumen for our API stuff. So if you guys, since this is a Laravel group already, something you're already familiar with, and I just thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you. Give it up for Axxess. Well, with that being said, that wraps it up for tonight. Feel free to mingle and talk to people around you. How many of you are not from Dallas or Fort Worth? So you're in for the conference and stuff. Okay, so cool. So most of you guys are here, so you can come next month, right? So we'd love to meet you and find out about the projects that you're working on. There's a lot of cool stuff that we've heard about just at different meetups. We want to be helpful to you. So if you have any questions, come up and ask us. Again, thank you to Axxess. Join our Slack channel because, again, that's a way to connect with us. We really do want to help. Like, there's plenty of times Danny hits it up or me or any of the guys just like, hey, I'm trying to figure this out. What's this problem? And most of the time, it's something silly, and we can help each other out. Other times, it's something complicated, and we can still help each other out. Follow us on Twitter, and that is it. I think the quotable for this meetup is telepathic animals and how we can be more like them. Right? I don't know if y'all saw that, but Nathan has a way with words. Oh, we need to give this away, right? So how many of you guys followed us? Oh, wow. Y'all don't want an elephant, apparently. Okay, so is it Miko or Nico? Miko? You were like one of the first ones that did, so would you like an elephant? You can't accept the elephant? Did you already get one?
It's a religious thing.
Oh, okay.
What if we accidentally leave it here and you just have it?
If you want me to donate the box to the Authentication,
Whoa, that kind of defeats the purpose here, doesn't it? Okay, well, who followed her? Followed us after her? Okay, what is your name, sir?
James.
James. Everybody, give it a hand for James. Cool. Well, I'll give this to you. Thank you guys again for coming out. We're gonna play music and hang out for a little bit more. I think there's a ton of pizza left, so definitely eat that. So, all right, thanks, guys.